Dear friends, I'm sure you must have heard the name Sanjeev Bhatt. In case you have not yet, you must, as he's at the same time a victim as well as a warrior. A victim of vengeance by those armored with the state power, and a warrior fiercely fighting against the mighty who had betrayed the people of this nation. We need Mr. Butt to win this iconic battle for the sake of our democracy, our institutions' integrity, and for our faith in truth and justice to prevail. Truth must win this war lest the evil triumph. Mr. Sanjeev Bhatt is not just another honest, upright police officer who is wronged by those in power who have done wrong. Rather, he is a message from the perpetrators in power to all those who dare to dissent. The message is that all dissenting voices will be silenced. The message is that you better fall in line or else. The message is that you dare to speak up and you will be finished. For the rest of us who hold the idea of India as a liberal secular democracy close to their hearts, this is a battle to save the very India that we knew from going down the drain and being doomed under the pitch darkness of tyranny. Our criminal justice system has failed Mr. Sanjeev Bhatt once again. When the judge in the Gujarat High Court played the Pontius Pilate on Mr. Bhatt's latest bail plea this week, the custodian of justice washed his hands, refusing to hear the bail plea, saying, "Not before me." And worse, without even stating any reason whatsoever for his recusal. The alarming message is not lost on anyone though, as the tragic fate of Justice Loya still stay fresh in the memories of those who were anxiously looking forward to justice being delivered to Mr. Bhatt. As the dark clouds of fear descend on the nation, the populace has already been numbed to perceive the chill. Mr. Bhatt was sentenced to life imprisonment by a Jamnagar Session Court in June 2019 for a 30-year-old alleged custodial death case filed in 2012, and is in jail since September 2018 on another case slapped on him again in 2012 of alleged drug planting in the year 1996. What's so special about the period 2011-12? That cases after cases from long forgotten past suddenly made their appearance and been slapped on Mr. Bhatt. And that is where the long tail of betrayals and gross misuse of the state machineries to protect the real guilty begins. It was in 2011 that Mr. Bhatt sent shivers down the spines of those who got loads of skeleton inside their closet to hide, with his crucial deposition in the Supreme Court and in front of the Inquiry Commission about the complicity of Mr. Narendra Modi in one of the most heinous crimes on humanity that shook our nation, the brutal human massacre in Gujarat in the year 2002. Mr. Bhatt had filed an affidavit in the highest court of the land and with the Nanavati Commission in April 2011 and testified in front of the Special Investigation Team that the then Chief Minister of the state, Mr. Modi, in a meeting instructed the police to look the other way during the riots and to allow the mob to vent their anger. It was a damning, dangerous and threatening deposition, good enough to take the responsible to the jail in which he is made to toil instead now. One could imagine what must have followed. Series of shameless betrayals, manufactured evidences, coerced witnesses, and a whole state machinery deployed for the witch hunt to discredit Mr. Bhatt. and eventually to establish that Mr. Butt was not even present in that meeting. Consequently, the incriminating deposition got invalidated, and in turn, Mr. Butt was made to pay the price for firmly siding with the truth. After Mr. Butt deposed in front of the SIT and Supreme Court and the Inquiry Commission in 2011, Mr. Butt was suspended from the service in the same year and later dismissed in 2015. His crime was, believe it or not, unauthorized leave of absence from duty for a few days. Yes, you heard it right. Unauthorized leave of absence for a few days. And he was suspended and later dismissed for that. And what was he doing in those few days of absence? He was testifying in front of the Special Investigation Team and the Inquiry Commission against the architects of a most cruel human carnage. He was exposing the powerful with incriminating evidences that would destroy their political future and would take them to the prison. That is what irked the culprits. In affidavit to the court, Mr. Butt named 6 witnesses who could testify his statements, and one of the names was his own driver, a police constable, Mr. Pant. And within 2 months, in June 2011, the witness Mr. Pant filed an FIR against Mr. Butt, alleging that he was threatened and forced by Mr. Butt to sign a false affidavit. One could only imagine what would have happened in the backdrop during those 2 months to get Mr. Pant file such a FIR. He even claimed in front of the SIT that Mr. Butt was on leave when the riots broke out. The criminals were, of course, working overtime to plug any holes that could lead to their indictment. They got Mr. Butt in jail in October 2011 based on this FIR. And the custodial death case of 1990 followed to make sure the final nail was hit hard and the ones who dared to cross swords with the powerful is taught a lesson. His own erstwhile colleagues denounced him to please their political masters during this entire episode of skewed justice, make it even more heartbreaking. The incident that led to the custodial death was from the distant past 1990. As many as around 150 people were taken into custody for rioting during that infamous Rath Yatra carried out by Mr. L.K. Advani. And one of the detainees, who was arrested and who were then released on bail after 7 days in custody, died 10 days later in a hospital while undergoing treatment. And this was the case of custodial death. The fact that not a single policeman was booked in any of the 180 custodial deaths reported during the period spanning from 2001 to 16 only thickens the plot and strengthens the suspicion that the custodial case against Mr. Butt was rather part of a systematic conspiracy hatched against a courageous whistleblower by those who had plenty to hide. I do not know Mr. Sanjeev Butt in person. I have never met him. I don't even know if I will ever meet him either. But my heart goes out to him. I stand by him in his cause. Like millions out there, I too joined the chorus demanding Mr. Butt be freed. He's paying the price for boldly battling with the mighty on our behalf. He also could have chosen to take the easy route, siding with the powerful as some of his peers did. He also would have got handsomely rewarded for his loyalty as his betrayers did. Instead, he took the side of the truth and fought for justice. We need to stand with him in this fight. We must refuse to be cowed down. We must refuse to live in fear. We must refuse to let go our liberty. If we stay silent today, If we stay silent today, we may not even have a voice to speak out tomorrow. If we don't fight today, we may not even have a tomorrow to fight. Let's pledge we will not let that happen ever.